What if your business could make qualification calls automatically, even when you sleep, and log every lead into Google Sheets without lifting a finger? In today's video, I will show you how to build your own AI phone agent that calls your leads, asks smart questions, and sends all the answers straight into your CRM, using nothing but VAPI and make.com. So first, what you need to do is you need to go to Google Drive and create a new Google Sheet. I have already created a new sheet called lead data, and this contains information about our leads, and you can see that this contains about 8 different columns. Actually it's 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 columns. And yes, so it contains first name, phone number, if we have called the lead already, and then we have some qualification questions like product or service, budget, timeline, next step, opt-it out, and then confidence score. So you can populate this Google Sheet with all of your lead data. So for the purpose of this video, I have populated this with JSON, then we have a phone number, and we haven't called JSON yet, so I set this to no. So once we have set up our Google Sheet, what we need to do is we need to go to make.com and create a new scenario. If you don't have an account in make.com, you can click on the link down below in the description and you can sign up. It's completely free to sign up and you don't need to pay anything. So you will also get 1000 free credits, which you can use to experiment with creating different scenarios. And you can create different workflows, and once you're ready, then you can start paying for a subscription. So I have created a scenario called outbound lead qualification agent, and we're going to start with creating this Google Sheets component. So what this component does is it basically reads information from the spreadsheet that we just created. So in here, what you need to do is you need to create a new Google connection. And once you've done this, then you need to search for the spreadsheet name. So in my case, I created a spreadsheet called lead data. Then we select the sheet name, which is the first sheet. And then we say, okay, this sheet contains headers. And after this, what we want to do is we want to fetch all the records where this value is set to no. So we have a column which is basically named as code already, and we want to pull all the records where this value is set to no, which means that we haven't called those leads yet, and this is exactly the data that we want to get. So we limit the number of results to 1, so you can set this to 5 or 10 depending on your needs, and this determines the number of results that will get returned. Say for example, if you had 10 leads and you haven't called any of them yet, if you set this to 5, then it's going to fetch the first 5 leads in your spreadsheet and it's going to pass them on to the next component in the scenario. So once we have defined our Google Sheets component, then the second component in the scenario is called array aggregator. So what we do in the array aggregator is basically we fetch different information from Google Sheets. So we fetch the total number of bundles, we fetch the row number, and then we extract the information that we actually need from the Google Sheet. And this is the first name of our lead and the phone number. And this is the information that we're going to use to set up our call with the voice agent. So the next component in the pipeline is called iterator. So what this does is it just iterates over the array, or let's say the list of different objects that are returned from the array aggregator. The next component is about setting a variable. So we basically create a single variable in here, which is called assistant main settings. As the name suggests, this contains the actual settings for our voice agent. And you can see here we define transcriber, We define the provider, the language, then the actual LLM model that we want to use. So in this case, we're using OpenAI and GPT-4o Mini. We set the temperature to 0.1 and we also create a tool inside VAPI. So we're going to come back to this and I will show you exactly how to create a new tool in VAPI. Next, what we do is we basically pass different messages to the LLM just to tell it what it needs to do. And the system message is the following. So we basically pass instructions on what questions the voice agent needs to ask and the sequence which it needs to follow. And this prompt also contains information about how the voice agent should behave and what it should do at the end of the call. So at the end of the call, it needs to basically collect all the information or summarize it and then pass it on to another make.com scenario that we're going to create in a few minutes. So once we have defined the messages in our variable, then we define the voice, and in this case we use the voice Savannah, which is provided by VAPI. The first message of our voice agent will be this. So, hi, this is Jessica calling from Sunrise Solutions. And then this is how we pass a dynamic variable. So it's going to make this first message very personalized based on the lead's first name. And then it says, I'm calling you about the recent inquiry that you sent. And we also specify a name for this voice agent. So once we have defined our variable, then what we need to do is we need to parse this. So what we do is we basically put this variable into square brackets, and then we create this component which is parse JSON. After this, we again create an array aggregator, and what we do in here is we select the fields which we're interested in. So we're basically extracting the transcriber, the model, the voice, the first message, and the name. After this, what we do is we use this component, which is called transform to JSON. And what this does is it basically takes the first object from the array that was returned from the previous component. The next step is to use the HTTP module and initiate a conversation with our voice assistant. So what we do in here is once you create this HTTP component, you set the authentication type to no authentication. Then you use the following URL, which is VAPI specific. So it's api.vapi.ai/call. And then you need to ensure that the method that we use is post. After this, you need to create headers. So what we do in here is the name of the header is authorization. And you also need to pass a value for the authorization header. So I'm going to show you how to get your token, and basically you need to put this in here. We also need to specify a second header, and this is called content type, and then it should be set to application/JSON. After this, what you need to do is you need to specify the body content type, and this should be application JSON again. Then in the body input method, you say that this is a JSON string. And then in the body content, you define this dictionary. So you've got customers, and this is a list of customers. So the first customer will be basically our first lead from the spreadsheet, and this is their phone number. So it comes dynamically from the iterator, and then the extension is just an empty string, and the name of our lead is again coming from the iterator component. The next element in our dictionary is called assistant, and then the assistant is the JSON string which we created from one of our previous components. Finally, what you need to do is you need to specify the phone number ID, and I will show you how to get this from VAPI. The final component in this make.com scenario is called Google Sheets, and in this case we use the functionality to update the record. So once I open this, so basically again we need to find the lead data spreadsheet that we created at the beginning of this video, and then you need to select sheet 1 again, and the row number in this case will come from the iterator, so this is going to map to exactly the row that we're processing at the moment. Then you say that the table contains headers, and in here what we do is basically we update the spreadsheet, and we're saying that code already should be set to yes. This is just so the next time when we run the scenario it doesn't call the same leads over and over again. Once we have created our make.com scenario, the next step is to go to VAPI.ai. If you don't have an account in VAPI.ai, you can click on the link down in the description. It's completely free to sign up, and you also get $10 credits, which you can use to create different voice agents, and you can experiment with them. So once you're in VAPI, what you need to do is you need to click on Tools here on the left hand side in the menu, and you need to create a new tool function. So I've created a tool function called lead underscore qualification, and then you give it description. So in this case, this tool is responsible for sending the user's answers to a webhook for further processing. Once you have specified description for this function, then you need to scroll down and define a bunch of parameters that this function is going to take. So we've got budget, timeline, next step, opt it out, confidence, and then product or service. You can see that all of these parameters, they're marked with an asterisk, which means that they're mandatory. And if you remember, we defined exactly the same columns in our Google Sheet, which means that all information that is collected by this function will then be passed to our Google Sheet and it will get updated. So next, what you need to do is you need to populate the server settings, and you need to put a server URL in here, and it's going to be another make.com scenario that we're going to create after a few minutes, and you will get a server URL from the scenario, and you need to populate it with the value in here. So once you have created your tool, what you need to do is you need to copy this tool ID by clicking on this button, and then you need to put this tool ID into the variable that we created in the make.com scenario in the section where it says tool IDs. The next step is to get your API token. So what you need to do is you need to go to API keys, again from the menu in VAPI.ai, and in here what you need to copy is the private key. So if you come here and then you need to click on this button. So once you have copied your private key, the place where you need to put it is the HTTP module that we created in our make.com scenario. So you need to go to your make.com scenario and put it into the authorization section. The next step is to link your phone number to VAPI.ai, and in order to do this you need to buy a phone number from Twilio, which is probably the easiest option that you have. So if you haven't watched one of my previous videos, I break down step by step on how to buy a number from Twilio and how to integrate it into VAPI. So I'm going to add a link somewhere on the screen and you can go and watch this. So once you have integrated your phone number into VAPI, then what you need to do is you need to copy the phone number ID by clicking on this button here. And again, you need to go to make.com and you need to put this phone number ID into the HTTP module under phone number. So the next step is to go to make.com and create a new scenario. So this scenario will be responsible for getting all the information from the AI voice agent, and then this information will be saved into our Google Sheets. So this scenario is slightly simpler than the first one. So it contains only 4 different components. So the first component is called webhooks, and then this is a custom webhook. So when you create this component, it's going to give you an option to create a new webhook, and you need to give a name to this webhook and then click on create. So once this is done, you will see a URL that will be created for you. And what you need to do is you need to copy this URL and you need to put it in the server settings in VAPI. Once you have created the webhooks component, then the second component in the scenario is called Google Sheets. And if we open this, then what we do is, again, we're using the lead data spreadsheet. We select sheet 1. We say that the table contains headers. And then what we do is we basically search for the record which we want to update, and then we use the phone number. So we use the phone number column, which is this column B, and then we say that this should be equal to the customer number which we have called. So this webhook is going to pass you information which is very useful, and we use this information to identify which record or which lead we need to update. So when we pass this phone number, it's going to return exactly one record unless you have duplicate records in your spreadsheet. And in order to handle this, we set the limit to 1. So this is going to return exactly one record as long as this customer phone number exists in your spreadsheet. After this, we have this component which is about updating a row in Google Sheets. So again, we select the same spreadsheet, which is lead data. We select sheet number 1, and then we're saying that the row number comes from the previous component, since now we should have identified the lead based on their phone number. We say that the table contains headers, and now, as you can guess, we populate all the columns of interest with information that our voice agent is passing to us. So you see here, product or service is mapped to this variable, which is product or service. Then budget is mapped to budget, and so on. So it goes up until confidence. And finally, we define another webhook component, which is webhook response. And in here we return status 200, and then we define a dictionary which contains one element, and this is results. And then we set the tool call ID to the tool call ID that we got from the custom webhook, and we set the result to nothing. So this is basically needed by VAPI so that it can process the response correctly. So at this point we have 2 different make.com scenarios. The first one is used for initiating calls and using our voice agent to call customer leads. And then the second one is used for processing all the information after each call and saving that into Google Sheets. So now what we can do is we can run our first scenario, and we're going to get a call from our voice agent. And once we have started the call, then we can start the second scenario so that it can wait for a response.
Hi, this is Jessica calling from Sunrise Solutions. Is this Jason? I'm calling about the recent inquiry you sent.
Yes, it's Jason speaking.
Great to confirm your identity, Jason. Do I have your consent to take notes during our conversation and continue?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Let's get started. Which product or service are you interested in?
I'm interested in automating customers' emails.
Got it. And what is your expected budget or budget range for this service?
Around $1,000.
Thank you for sharing that. When would you like to start with the automation?
Next month, please.
you like a demo or a quote for the email automation service?
Demo would be helpful, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jason. Thank you for your time today. I'll make sure to note everything we discussed. Have a great day.
Thank you. As you can see, this was our first conversation with our voice assistant. And as you noticed, our second scenario was triggered towards the end of the call, which means that we've received all the data from the conversation. So now, if we look at this component, which is Google Sheets update row, you will see that we successfully pulled a record, which is at row number 2, and basically we updated 6 different columns. So if we go back to our Google Sheet now, you will probably see that the data has been updated, and there you go. So you have this variable that's updated to yes, so code already is set to yes now. Product or service is set to email automation. The budget is set to 1000. Timeline is next month. We wanted a demo, then we didn't opt out, and then the confidence score is set to 8 out of 10. If you found this video useful, please like it and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get the templates behind this video, you can join my school community. The link should be down below in the description. It's completely free to join and you don't need to pay anything. Thank you very much for your time and see you in the next video.